Hello, and thank you for joining us for episode 2 of our Fire Strong podcast. This podcast is an official product of the Fire Center of Excellence and Fort Sills Public Affairs Office. I'm your host, Don Herrick.
And I'm Keith Pennell.
And today in the studio, we have Chief Warrant Officer 3, Kevin Kruthers, the ADA, or Air Defense Artillery Proponent Warrant Officer, who's going to talk to us about ADA warrant officers. Hey, Chief, thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome, sir. Thanks for having me on your podcast here to spread the word about our warrant officers.
Man, we're excited about it. So, tell us about Air Defense Artillery Warrant Officer, and we're really excited to hear about your culture campaign.
Okay, so, the culture campaign, it really nests what we can bring to the branch with Army strategy, specifically the people strategy. You could also make parallels to how we support modernization with what some of our warrant officers are doing out there as well. But this is really focused on, the people strategy aspect. That was something that, is very important to the Chief of Staff, right? And, we've heard his, people come first and people first values. And so we kind of looked at ourselves and said, well, how can we contribute, right? Everyone knows, the warrant officer is a technical expert, the SME on whatever hardware it is that they have that they either maintain, right, or operate. But we kind of looked at, how can we go beyond that? Because a warrant officer is a leader as well, and an advisor and a mentor, and your technical expertise builds the foundation for the validation for why you're able to provide leadership and advice and mentorship, right? But that's not just all you do, right? So we kind of looked at ourselves and said, well, how can we support this? And, it was twofold, right? So part of it is culture, just you adapt or develop a culture intentionally or unintentionally, right? So just by the things you do, your habits, your activities, your values. And if you're not careful and you're not conscious about it and you're not intentional about it, you may just unintentionally develop a culture that doesn't exactly align with what the overall values and strategy and vision should be, Yeah. And so part of it was a reaffirmation of that for ourselves. Like, hey, who are we? What does right look like for a warrant officer? And what do we not want to be, right? And that's kind of internal to the cohort, and also to confirm with our leaders, hey, this is who we are. This is who we should be. Hold your warrant officers accountable, hold each other accountable. But the bigger piece of it is tying it to that strategy, right? And showing our leaders really truly why we're value added in terms of where, the Secretary of the Army, Chief Staff of the Army want to go with the people strategy. So, and the ADA Warrant Officer Culture Campaign is just aligning and reaffirming our culture with that and nesting it to that doctrine.
So you're looking for more warrant officers.
Absolutely.
So to the junior NCO who may be listening to this, we hope a lot of them are, what exactly is a warrant officer? Why should a junior NCO or a mid-level NCO decide, I want to be a warrant officer? And what does that entail? What do they have to do? But first of all, what does a warrant officer do? Because, come on, Chief, you know the myth.
Right.
The myth is that,
I don't know if I can, I don't know if I should tell you really
once in a while, drinking coffee and makes a point and then disappears. But we're having fun saying that, but the Chiefs serve a very important purpose and role in today's Army. So how does one become a chief? And what exactly, you mentioned something earlier, they're the SMEs, they're the subject matter experts for whatever system they're on. So if you wouldn't mind, go into that a little bit so somebody listening to this may say, oh, that sounds like something I want to broaden my career with.
Yes, so in Air Defense Artillery, we are tech warrant officers or technical warrant officers. You have the aviators, right? They fly rotary wing aircraft, and then you have all the technician MOSs, right? So the premise of a technician warrant officer is that you have a foundation from your enlisted experience on a particular, aspect of the Army. It could be a system or an operation or a process. Maybe you're a logistician or work for a staff judge advocate. In our case, we work with our air defense equipment. So you have your 140 Alpha, that's the air and missile defense C2 systems integrator, right? And so their critical function at the tactical level is integrating the tactical data links so that sensors can provide their data, digital control of systems, right? The integrated air picture, all these things. We obviously, talking about where we're going with MDO and all that stuff, that's obviously a critical capability. The 140 Kilo is a tactician. So building on that technical understanding of the weapon system, but how do you employ it? How do you operate it, right? At the tactical level. And then the 140 Lima is the technician. So they are the field level maintenance advisor and program manager for that battery commander at that level. And they are really making sure that the system is, in the highest condition of readiness that it can possibly be in, so that we can do what we need to do with it. We're looking for those enlisted members that, first of all, part of the culture campaign is engagement, right? And getting and development and getting after our soldiers at a younger age so that we can market the program to them and say, hey, PFC so-and-so, specialist so-and-so, did you know that this was something you could do, right? And if you are interested, this is how you go about it, so that we can groom them and develop them to where when they get to, let's say, 6 or 7 years time in service, and they're a Sergeant E5 with maybe 2 or 3 years in that leadership role, that's kind of when we want you to make the transition. And I say that because we've had, our branch has slowly gotten older in terms of the warrant officers that we assess, both older in time in service, and rank. And so that's good. I mean, we get seasoned, NCOs that have a lot of leadership experience and, a lot of time in their craft, but, it hurts us in terms of the long game, right? And so we're saying, hey, you know what, if you have potential, right, and you're kind of at that about 7 years time in service, and you've met what the prerequisites are, we will take you under our wing and we will develop you the rest of the way. We're not looking for, hey, tomorrow we can pin 2 dots on you and you're going to be fire and forget, right? There's still a selection process and a development process. You're a W1 for 2 years for a reason, right? And so we're kind of asking the branch to look a little bit younger, right? And also the branch, not to put out any numbers that are, maybe close hold right now, but the branch is growing. That's no secret to anyone. To include our warrant officer authorizations, when we convert formations or stand up new formations, there's warrant officer billets and authorizations are a part of that. And the CW3, right? Those jobs are going to grow, kind of more of our senior tactical level guys. And so if we take someone in who has 12 plus years in service, our biggest threat to attrition is that 20 years in service CW3. That is where our, almost entirely our entire warrant officer population disappears, is CW3's 20 years in service. And you can't blame them, right? I mean, you've done your 20 years, thank you for your service and you've served honorably. And no one's saying that that's wrong of them to leave, but it's partially our fault for allowing ourselves to assess older and older. We're at about, I think our average is somewhere between 11 and 12 years time in service. And, E7s make up a lot more of our population that we assessed than they did several years ago. So we just kind of started slipping older and older. And so, we kind of looked at, well, maybe we're just not engaging people early enough. Maybe they're not aware until much later in the game, or they weren't developed properly or made aware of these opportunities and how to set themselves up for success until later on in the game, and they needed a few years to kind of catch up, those sort of things. So we're really looking at, if you have 7 years time in service when we assess you, you have to stay till W4, I mean, we'll get those, we'll keep those. And if it's something you want to do, you can maximize your opportunity, right? You can still maybe leave the service at 21, 22 years, but you've made it all the way to W4 and you've gotten to do, a lot more jobs than you would just get if you were a W2 when you retired. And so, that's, and something that we're trying to kind of stamp out is a lot of there was we did it to ourselves, right? We had some people out there that were saying, well, it's move up or move out as a warrant. You get looked at once for promotion, twice, and then you're out if you don't make it. So you really want to make sure that, our first centralized board that can happen is W3. So, hey, if you go too early, you risk the chance of up and out, right? And you end up out before you're eligible for retirement. And to me, that's just bogus. The type of individual, if you're driven enough to make the attempt to apply to be a warrant officer and you're selected, you're the kind of person that's going to have no issues, making a promotion, and that shouldn't even be a thought. I'm a personal testament to that. I crossed over at just under 7 years, and I'm getting looked at for W4 this year, and I barely have 18 years time in service, but it was never a thought or something that my mentors instilled in me. It was like, well, wait a minute, you're too young, you should wait, and so now, the return on investment for the branch is, I'm going to be here through CW4, so we're trying to get ourselves a little younger to support that growth for the branch.
So how do we get at that younger demographic? And then just using your case in point for, those 5 to 7 year time in service NCOs, what can you tell them about the promotion accessions if they do become warrant officer? How does that look compared to the enlisted side of the house?
Yeah, so I really don't have, I don't have data about as far as, retention, promotion rates, things like that on the enlisted side. But, right now, that CW3 growth we need for FY 28, 29, the CW3s of those years are the people we're going to select this year and next year. It takes us 6 years to grow that CW3. You're going to put in your application about probably a year later. Go to the candidate school at Fort Rucker, come to your basic course here at Fort Sill, which all the basic courses are about 6 months now, and then you're going to you have 2 years from the time you're appointed to W1. Right now, that's when you graduate walks. And then, so you go out to your unit for about a year or so, maybe a year and a half as a W1. And then W2 is, that's kind of like promotion specialist, 2 years time in grade, and you're going to make W2. And right now it's about, boarded at about 4 years time in grade, promoted in 5. So they are looking at, for the guys that are coming in now, we have right now, we're at an aggregate of, like I said, I don't want to get CUI on the numbers, but, it's like we're maybe 2/3 full on our authorizations, right? So, there's right now, if you're coming in, we don't have, because we don't have more, we're not 100% full. We don't have more people than we need. The path to promotion when you get to that look for W3 and W4 is very favorable, and just because, and if we're not able to keep up now, if we're at such a low fill now and we're continuing to grow, we'd really have to over-assess in the next 2 years to get those individuals to the point where they're concerned with, hey, I might not make CW3, right? And that's part of why we, part of our strategy with accessions is keeping those year groups healthy so that this is a, beneficial career path where it's not just, hey, let's take 90 of you, and then, oh, by the way, 15 of you might make CW3 because we just don't have, so that's a bad marketing ploy too, so we have to look out at, and some of the people, we will get those individuals that have more than 11 years time in service in every year group, and they attrit out, and that's fine. That kind of clears up the pyramid through attrition, so that people can move forward. So it is a, and this kind of is our, our catchphrase with the, be trusted, be remembered, make a difference. If you're doing those things, and I tell the young guys, if you're trusted, right, you're doing your job, your job, you have passion about doing your job, and you're taking care of people, right? If you're remembered, and because there's so few of us, you're going to be remembered. Yeah. It might be, hopefully it's for a good thing, but that's up to you, but you're going to be remembered. And again, if you're, doing your job, you're being that leader, advisor, mentor, and expert, and you're taking care of people and just being a good team player, you're going to be remembered favorably. And then, because you're doing all those things, you're probably making an impact, right? You may not realize it in the day-to-day, but as you go from assignment to assignment and kind of go throughout your career, you're going to look back and realize what you were doing made an impact. And I think, we cannot run the Army without our enlisted and our NCOs. I mean, I still need good NCOs, but when I look back at the opportunities to make an impact I had as a warrant officer versus when I was enlisted, it's tenfold, and it's because you when you are trusted and you are put in those positions to advise and to mentor and to apply your expertise, it's inevitable. You're going to make an impact, right? And I think that is what, for the young NCOs, I would tell them, your leadership comes with you, right? If you like to be with the troops and you like to mentor and train troops, that doesn't leave as a warrant officer. You keep that and you take that with you. But you're, just from, the focus of the development and the training for warrant officers and what the Army, learning outcomes are for them, you will just continue to be enriched with more technical experience on your weapon system. And that's a draw for a lot of NCOs is, hey, even officers, right? We've had 3 14 Alphas now that we've gotten to become 140 kilos. And the conversation was, hey, I really like the being involved in the weapon system, right? I like to be an operator. For the officers, a lot of times they were like a TD or a DAFCO, and they just want to keep doing that, right? Rather than staff and command. And NCOs, at some point, there's a similar cut for NCOs too, right? Where, they become used in more of an administrative role, a manager role. They get away from, the weapon system, right? Whether once they become a first sergeant, sergeant major, and we need good first sergeants and sergeant majors and platoon sergeants and master gunners. But for some of them, they see, hey, like we'll take a master gunner, for example, right? Hey, I really like being down here where the rubber meets the road, training small units and teams to employ this weapon system and to operate this weapon system. And so if you want to continue to be a leader and continue to, serve our branch in that role, warrant officer is a great route to go. And to go back to the point about assessing earlier versus later, the majority of our branch, and not just warrant officer, but the majority of our branch's authorizations are in those tactical jobs, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm not even saying a majority like 51%, like way higher. It's, are in those battalions, right? And directly contributing to lethality. And so if you ever want to get, and that's W3s, right? W3s, W2s, that's tactical level, right? You don't get to the brigade level to some of those, lower density positions in our branch until you're a W4. So if you want to maximize your opportunity as a warrant officer and do some of these other jobs out there that are exciting and have a even bigger impact, right? Brigade at DAFCO, or working at a double NBC, working at a division if you're, 140 Alpha, as a Lima, maybe going to AMCOM, down in Huntsville, you need to stay a little longer. You need to be senior. You need to get that experience under your belt. And so if you want to do that, you kind of have to either stay in past 20 or come in a little earlier, and it is important for us to assess people who have some leadership experience, because we are, as a warrant officer too, and this is something that may be, interesting to those young enlisted is, you are pretty independent, right? I mean, you're usually one deep. Maybe there's 2 of you in your echelon or your organization, and you're given a lot of trust, right? You earn it, but you're given a lot of trust to execute your duties as you see fit because you're the expert in what it is that you do. And a lot of times you're out of line of sight of the commander. You don't have a platoon sergeant or, first sergeant might be on you if you didn't go to the range yet this month or you didn't do your 350-1. But no, I mean, the first sergeants have been greatly supportive to what I've had to do. But you're out of line of sight of your boss. You're working decentralized. And so if you're tired of, somebody breathing down your neck, telling you exactly what time it is that you can leave for chow and all that kind of stuff, go warrant, and we'll continue to groom you on your leadership training and stuff like that. Because that too kind of makes a difference, I think, for some people. And a lot of our W3s at 20 are getting out because just like the NCOs and the enlisted, our branches, we're working hard right now, and the op tempo is very high, and a lot of young NCOs, especially the 14 Echoes that typically are targeted for the 140 kilo, they are the cream of the crop for the 14 Echoes. They've been serving in the shelter. They've been on the battle rostered crew. They've been going through, the deployment downrange and coming back and getting reset and being trained and ready to go again, and just over and over and over. And a lot of them see, well, if I become a warrant officer, I'm going to come back to the battery. I'm just going to switch chairs in the shelter and go through all of this all over again. And if that's all they're seeing as what a warrant officer at the battery contributes, then I need to know who that warrant officer is in their battery that they think is just a TCO and that's all they're doing. Because even if there's a period of time where you do have to go and that is your job, one of your jobs. But even then, it's still so much better to do that as the warrant officer, because you're still given that that latitude and that trust to go out there and do what you need to do to inspire and enable and empower and do your job without as much of a without a lot of the other stuff that sometimes you deal with when you're lower enlisted and stuff like that, junior enlisted. So I mean it. And then those years go by and you move on to bigger and better things. And a lot of times you look back on it, and the time you had, at least for me, that I had in the battery was some of the most fun I had as a warrant officer. You think at the time that this is, I'm just going through the grind again. I was in the battery for almost 5 years, and I spent all my enlisted time in the battery. And so I was kind of in a hurry to get out. But that was some of the most fun and rewarding times I had as a warrant officer, being in a battery element with the young lieutenants and the NCOs and the soldiers. So I would not, you're going to do hard work, but the reward in terms of the impact you can make, and through making impact, the kind of intrinsic job satisfaction you get, I think that's really where the biggest draw is, for me at least, and not just money or promotion or anything like that. So
that's awesome.
Chief, now that we've hopefully convinced somebody, what do they need to have? How do they need to get ready? That kind of thing, to come talk to you or whomever to try to join the warrant officer ranks. Right.
And so the first thing I always point everyone to is, of course, if you don't know what to do, you can reach out to me, but I'm not the recruiter. So the recruiters handle the administration and of the application, all the paperwork, all the documents, and kind of those general Army requirements, right? So I will always point them to the website, gowarrantnow.com. If they type that into their browser, it'll pop up the USAREC warrant officer page, and start by looking at those administrative requirements, right? And so there's some that are not, the big ones, that aren't waiverable right now is the GT of 110, just Army regulation, enlisted going through a commissioning source, have to have the GT 110, U.S. citizenship, high school graduate or GED, and the secret security clearance. They've taken the APFT off now since we've gotten to March 2022, and that XORD has expired. More to follow on what will happen with the ACFT and things like that. And then you can kind of go down the list, and there's some other requirements there. There are some that are waiverable. USAREC, like the active federal service waiver. Some of them will be handled by USAREC, some will be handled by DAG1, but really just start there at the website. And then they lay out the MOSs as well. So you have kind of the Army's requirements to become a warrant officer, and then you have the prerequisites that we're looking for each MOS. And so you go to the MOS feeder table and you click on 140 Alpha, and it'll show you everything we're looking for. But a lot of the things, a lot of times sometimes people writing a letter say, hey, they call me, hey, I got this individual. They tell me 3 or 4 things about them, and I'm like, well, I need to kind of see the whole picture, right? So there is no harm in submitting an application. Your application doesn't go to the board if it hasn't gone through the proponent, right? So USAREC will validate it, and they'll basically, pull the waivers out and go start processing them. They'll make sure all the paperwork's there, and they'll send it to me. And that's the proponent validation, is really that technical piece. So that specific MOS requirements. And if at that point I've gotten the whole site picture of who you are and stuff, and I just don't feel like you're there, then, reach out to you, have a conversation with your mentor, and we just hold on to it. right? We don't initiate the board process, because once we do that, now there's, ramifications for not getting selected by the board. So there's no harm in just submitting the application, but go to the website, and then on the website too, under the contact us information is the POCs for your regional recruiter, right? So like if you're at Fort Sill in the Central Region, you got Chief Perkins, and those recruiters are great. I mean, they all have been rock stars for me in helping us get people, through the wickets. And the other thing too that I've seen be a hindrance is we publish the MILPER with all the deadlines, right? This board is happening, 21 to 25 March. So the packets are due by this date to USREC and et cetera. And some people, things happen. They don't get the paperwork, the application completed in time. So they realize, well, shoot, I missed the deadline. I guess I just have to give up, or I guess I have to wait until the next. We are open to process these applications 24/7, 365. USREC will take an application any day of the year. They will validate it, put it in my gears box any day of the year, and we will get them processed. And if we are a week prior to a board and you don't need any waivers, or you need just an AFS and they get that cleared, we will throw it in that board, even if it's the day the board's starting. I mean, we've gotten them turned around very quickly. And if not, it's validated and ready to go for the next board. And you don't have to worry. You just know, hey, my packet's board ready, and it didn't make it for January, but you know what? There's one coming up in May, and it's going to be in there. So we just tell people, please get the timelines are there as a guideline to guarantee, you have enough time. But if not, keep working it keep pushing it all the way till you hit the goal line, and keep me in the loop if you're having obstacles, if you're downrange and you got to go to Kuwait to get your physical and you're not going to make it in time, whatever the case may be, right? So, just don't give up. And I point people to the website if they've clearly haven't been there yet, right? Because it's like, hey, I go here first, right? But anyone can reach out to me at any point, and I'm going to help them, even if it is I have a signature block that is for the people who clearly have just seen my name somewhere and haven't gone to the website. It has all the information in there. It's in the bottom of my signature block. And I'll still say, hey, go here first, and then come back and let's have a conversation. And a lot of people, especially for 140 Alphas and Limas, they're not in a formation where they have an air defense warrant officer either. So a lot of times if they come from an air defense brigade or a Patriot battalion, it's like, well, who's your mentor in your unit? Who's the senior warrant unit? Like, why haven't you talked to them? But if they're coming from, an Army headquarters or the Marine Corps, I'll do my part to link them up with a mentor in that MOS so they can get some, guidance on that part. Because everyone needs a letter of recommendation from a CW3 or above in that MOS. So a lot of times we have like 25 series, or, like I said, Air Force, airman, tech sergeant or something like that. They don't have a 140 Lima, they're in Okinawa somewhere, so we'll link them up with 1-1, or, we'll figure out a way to get it done.
Interesting.
Yep.
So I know it's on everyone's mind, especially as they're looking at signing up for additional years. Is there an accessions bonus for warrant officers?
Yeah, so funny you bring that up. So we had a program in FY 2021, and we applied to continue that program. And for whatever reason, with what's going on with the budget and stuff this year, we just got the approval on Friday to go ahead and execute a accessions bonus program and retention bonus program. Yes, the 18th of February.
So you guys are hearing it here first.
Right, yeah,
breaking
absolutely. So, we have to go through and kind of figure out the spend plan, but because we have a decent chunk of money to spend in just 2 quarters, I think we're going to be able to max out our offering. And so that's for the retention bonus. That's a maximum of $20,000 a year for 4 years. So you get an ADSO. And then for the max for the accessions bonus is $60,000, and that's a 6-year ADSO from the day you graduate your basic course. So, if we can go ahead and apply, if we can, accommodate the max, that's what it would look like for 140 Kilo and Lima applicants, and also for those that are eligible for the retention bonus. And I have to go through and verify this. I just saw this morning, so I have to go verify the spend plan and put out the MILPER messages. So when the MILPER messages are published with the specifics, we'll go ahead and share that on Facebook and notify all the senior warrant officers and everything like that. So.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been, we've had people asking, for half the year now. So it's good that if they finally came through with it.
So I know the commandant likes saying it, but it is truly a great time to be an air defender.
It is, absolutely. I mean, yeah, the opportunities for growth as a warrant officer are just tremendous. And, if the Army's going to give you a little money to incentivize you for doing something that is rewarding in and of itself, then, then it's even better. So. And
you get saluted.
Yeah. I mean, it's that there is, for those that maybe have no idea, the younger junior enlisted, and it's, you're appointed as a W1, then you're a commissioned officer, right? So, and you're kind of stratified, we are a cohort within the officer corps. So we're stratified with our officer equivalents in terms of, hey, W1, W2, you're a company grade, 3, 4 field grade. So you also, part of it is, well, you need to conduct yourselves and, as a professional company grade officer. But, if you're overseas and, you want to get housing on base and you're a W3, like, you're going to get the field grade officer housing, so you still get to do the dirty work that you did when you were an NCO, but you get a little bit more of the lifestyle and compensation of being an officer in the U.S. Army. So it's really the best of both worlds. That's why I did this. I was in for just long enough to see that, being a commissioned officer, command and staff was just not for me, but this was kind of a happy medium, and I've been absolutely happy with it ever since. So.
Well, that's awesome. So we're running short on time. So I wanted just to open it up to you if you had any closing comments or anything that you'd like to add, or even advice to that young sergeant who's thinking about making a change.
Yeah, as far as advice, I mean, just, get involved early, go seek out a mentor, tell them you're interested in becoming a warrant officer, and, go to the website, make a plan of action. Hey, I'm just promoted to sergeant. Here's what they're looking for, and kind of make a timeline. Maybe I can, maybe it's a 24-month timeline. These are the things I need to do, and start working it so that when you hit 7 years, maybe just promoted to staff sergeant, you're ready, And as far as, anything else to plug, we hit the bonus. We really need 140 kilos. That's always our most challenging session. Even last year with the bonus, we just barely made it across the finish line. But I'm a 140 kilo, so if you have questions, they can absolutely reach out and talk to me. We have a worldwide kind of 140 kilo day going on the 24th of February. Each region, each USREC region is handling their own batch of installations differently as far as, time and virtual versus in person. So all that's going out to all the senior warrants in the branch. If you got those invites or flyers, please, we're really trying to make a campaign for specifically those NCOs that are in that 140 kilo market, because we're halfway through the year in terms of boards, and we're at 25% where we need to be for kilos, and we're at 50% for the other 2 MOSs. We're really short in that MOS. So, those are the 2 things that I probably wanted to put out today, the bonus and the 140 kilo push. So.
Well, that's awesome. And for all of our listeners, if you want to find more information or reach out to Chief Kruthers, you can hit him up on his Facebook page. And you can just simply Google ADA Proponent Warrant Officer. And remember their message. You'll be trusted, you'll be remembered, and come make a difference. We'd like to thank our guest, CW3 Kevin Kruthers, the ADA Proponent Warrant Officer, for joining us today. And you've been listening to Fire Strong.